Good morning. My name is Roy Varney. I'm the TRTA Multimedia Specialist, and this morning we're going to be watching the Committee on Pensions, Investments, and Financial Services. This committee is very important to TRTA and its purposes, given that it deals with pensions, and TRS is the pension from which our retirees receive their annuities from. And there's a bunch of bills that we're tracking in this committee. And of course, making it out of committee is going to be the first step for these bills to become law. And chief among those subjects which we're tracking this morning is going to be COLA bills. And there's a number of those. And I'm going to post those here in the chat for YouTube and Facebook. So you should be able to access that document there if you go to that link. So I'm going to be hopping in and out of this meeting. You know, there's a lot of dead time sometimes in these meetings, and we'll be watching for, testimony. Certainly, I don't know if you can spot him, but Tim Lee is in that crowd down there, and I wouldn't be surprised if he'll be making testimony this morning. We want to thank Representative Rafael Anchia, who is the chairman of this committee. He is the one who scheduled it today, and because he scheduled it because he knows it's our Zoom to the Capitol week, which has already been off to a great start. If you missed it last night, Tim Lee did an interview with Representative Giovanni Capriglione, who's on this committee and who has, I believe he's on this committee, and he has a bill that's going to be testified on today. Relating to, I believe his is cost of living, but it might be return to work, relating to cost of living adjustment. Yes. So we'll be watching that. They're just getting started right now, filtering in. And again, I'll be hopping in and out. But we're very excited, of course. Oh, yes. And on Tim Lee's interview last night, he also talked to Senator Eddie Lucio. So we really appreciate Capriglione and Lucio joining us last night. One of the things that just always amazes me about TRTA is, how much of a connection we're able to form with these legislators because of our involvement of our members. Our members are just amazing at getting involved. And it's just, we have so many champions within this organization. When I see all the people who are filling out their red letters and sending those in, and, we had the kickoff call yesterday and we had so many people wearing red. All of that is just very, very exciting and shows all of the passion that we have for this organization. So again, we'll be hearing testimony here just in a minute on from the PIFS committee. And obviously it's not just TRTA bills that are up on the docket today, but there are a lot of them. And I linked those in those chats. So a lot of bills about TRS cost of living adjustments, potentially, a number of bills relating to return to work provisions. So anyway, they're getting started now.
The Committee on Pensions, Investments, and Financial Services will come to order, and the clerk will call the roll.
Chairman Anchia.
Here.
Vice Chairman Parker. Representative Vo.
Here.
Representative Munoz. Representative Stevenson.
Here.
Representative Capriglione.
Here.
Representative Perez.
Here.
Representative Slauson.
Here.
Representative Rogers.
Here.
Quorum is present.
Members of quorum is present. Good morning. Traditionally, we'd be voting out bills at this time, but we want to make efficient use of the time that we do have. I don't know that we're going to get everything done before we go on the floor. We may have to come back, members. Today, we're going to be focused on teacher retirement system and employee retirement system. I also want to acknowledge this is kind of like an ad hoc reunion of the elected class of 2004. I see a lot of my classmates here, Representative Vo, Representative Herrero, Representative Martinez, and Representative Allen is going to be with us today. And I was warned at the outset not to mention that my eldest daughter, Sophia, is here. So I'm going to refrain from doing that. She's in the, no, she is not in the third row with the Donna Howard mask. So just FYI, not going to mention that. All right, members. Let's get the ball rolling with, let's see, who is here. Let's start with who is senior between Representative Martinez? Okay, we'll start with Representative Martinez then.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members. Always a
Chair
pleasure.
lays out, sorry, Representative
That's all right.
Martinez. The chair lays out House Bill 672 relating to cost of living increases applicable to benefits paid by the teacher retirement system, and recognizes my classmate, Representative Martinez, to explain his bill. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. Always a pleasure to be here in front of such a fine committee and in front of such a fine chairman. House Bill 672 requires the teacher retirement system to adjust retired teachers' annuities on an annual basis as long as the TRS fund is actuarially sound. If the system is actuarially sound but does not have the necessary funds to make a full adjustment, the adjustment is limited to the largest rate of adjustment possible without threatening the soundness of the system. This cost of living adjustment applies to service retirement, disability benefits, and death benefits. And under this bill, annuities would be tied to the consumer price index for urban wage earners and clerical workers. This index is used by the Social Security Administration to tie Social Security benefits to inflation. So the need for this bill can best be explained by comparing the teacher salaries of today to those of yesterday. According to the Digest of Education Statistics, the average teacher salary in Texas for 2016-2017 was $52,000, and for the 99 to 2000 school year, the average salary was $37,000. So you could see the difference. Teachers who retired before the increase never enjoyed the benefit of higher salaries and their annuity calculations for retirement. For teachers that haven't enjoyed a full cost of living increase in over a decade, the financial burdens that come with retirement are that much greater. And we've heard a lot of our retired teachers who have discussed this on how premiums, insurance premiums, and the cost of living continues to rise, and they still have not received an increase. By not tying annuities to inflation, we're placing a tremendous burden on our teachers. All too often, upon retirement, our educators must live on a fixed income. They must account for living costs, food, medicine, phone, and internet, and healthy care every month. We all know that even with a supplemental $500 million infusion from the rainy day fund to TRS care from the House version of the budget, our teachers will face increased healthcare costs, and this will cut into the retirement even more. So House Bill 672 can address this issue and provide our retired teachers with a plan that they deserve. So in summary, House Bill 672 takes care of our retired teachers, the people who helped us raise and educate us, by providing for a cost of living adjustment when possible and protecting the actuarially soundness of the teacher retirement system. And I'll entertain any questions.
So teachers make a big impact on our lives, no question about it. You can probably remember some of your elementary school teachers. Do you remember your first grade teacher?
Absolutely, I sure do.
So
Yes,
do I.
Mrs. Rogers.
Mrs.
Yeah.
Rogers.
Actually, yes, Mrs. Rogers. And she was actually my son's fourth grade teacher as well.
As well.
So, yes.
Fantastic. Please let the record reflect the presence of Vice Chair Parker. Welcome. Members, any questions? Excellent.
Thank you.
We'll call you back up to close. The chair recognizes Timothy Lee, Executive Director for the Texas Retired Teachers Association. Welcome, Timothy.
Chairman, thank you. My name is Tim Lee. I'm the Executive Director of the Texas Retired Teachers Association. I want to start by saying thank you, Representative Anchia, for a great agenda today and recognizing retired teachers' commitment to the state. And Representative Martinez, what a wonderful bill layout. Thank you so much. This is a creative solution to an ongoing concern that retirees
You're for
have.
this creative solution.
I am for.
Excellent.
Thank you so much.
Excellent.
This is tied to the CPI. If you look back at the class of retirees currently, since 2000, I think we passed the last raise for retirees in 2013. It was effective for all retirees 8/31/2004 or before. If you retired September 1st, 2004 or after, that means you've not had a cost of living raise ever. About 50%
Say that again.
ever. No cost of living raise.
From which time certain?
9/1/2004 or after. So 17 years in retirement.
So basically, when we got elected, we got
Yes, sir.
elected in November of 2004, right, Dr. Allen?
Yes. So I think this is it's a great solution. It's very creative and looks very much like Social Security. We'd love to work with the legislature to try and pass this and continue to find a way to keep TRS sound, which is a major part of the bill, and also including the TRS Board of Trustees. So thank the chairman for laying this out. Thank you so much. Happy to answer any questions.
Members, any questions? Appreciate your
Thank you so
testimony
very
today.
much.
All right, let's see. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on, for, or against House Bill 672? Okay, if not, the chair recognizes Representative Martinez to close on House Bill 672.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let's give our retired teachers an increase they deserve, and I ask for your favorable consideration. Have a good day. And I
Thank you.
close.
We appreciate you. House Bill 672 will be left pending at this time. All right. So, right here. All right. The chair lays out House Bill 1846 and recognizes Representative Allen to explain her bill. And it is, I think it's appropriate at this time to also wish you a very, very happy birthday.
Thank you
To my
very
classmate,
much.
Dr. Allen. Happy birthday.
Thank you. It's a big birthday. I love you. They put all the smart people on this committee.
Don't you know it?
I know, especially the chair, my classmate 17 years ago. So
Here,
we've
here.
earned another retirement. I have anyway, but I've been living on the one that TRS gives me. That's why I can be here. Then I came here, started making $7,200 a year. So don't be jealous, don't be jealous. Mr. Chair and members, my name is Alma Allen, retired teacher. Mr. Chair and members, the retirement teachers system is a defined benefits plan for Texas teachers, as well as the food service, the paraprofessionals, the maintenance workers, bus drivers, and other necessary occupations who play a role in educating our children. School employees contribute part of their salary to the TRS pension fund, and the state also contributes, but less than the employees. As a former educator, this is an important issue to me. I have seen retirees suffer from financial hardship at the cost of essentials like energy, food, medical care. They increase, but the pensions have not. Do you know there are teachers living on $1,500 a month? $1,500 a month. Since 2004, even as they reduced the state contribution to the public education, including the TRS pension fund. HB 1846 increased retirees' benefits to 10%, allows for an annual cost of living raise at 4%, and a one-time 13th check or supplement check. This is much needed. We have people who have dedicated their whole lives to you and me and the thousands of children they've had an opportunity to touch their lives. And so this is important to retirees. I beg of you to grant this bill. 1846 is a needed bill to keep the education process going. Not many people are going into education because the benefits are not there. So we need to up the profession in many ways, but this would help attract other teachers to enter the profession. I love my work. I still love this work. And so honor your teachers this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Allen. And Dr. Allen, just some of the younger members than us may not know that you also were elected to the State Board of Education prior to your service in the House. Is that
Of
right?
course, yeah. I served 12 years on the State Board of Education after serving 39 years in the Houston Independent School District. Those 39 years, and then I was a 5-year adjunct professor at Prairie View A&M University. And then I came here and I've spent 17 years. Now you can add all that up, figure out what birthday this is.
And it equals 29.
Yeah, it all equals 29. And I think there are witnesses, and I reserve the right to close.
We'll call you back up to close. Thank you, Dr. Allen. Chair recognizes Timothy Lee, Executive Director of the Texas Retired Teachers Association, for the bill.
My name is Tim Lee. I'm the Executive Director of Texas Retired Teachers Association for the bill. Dr. Allen is a friend. She is an educator. She is a member of our organization. She's a hero in my book. And when she talks, I know she is thinking about all of her fellow retirees and saying, we need to do something to help them. 130,000 current TRS retirees, $1,000 a month or less. That is who she's thinking about when she files this bill. And I consider her to be a champion and a hero for our members and for all TRS retirees. We wholeheartedly support her bill. Happy to answer any questions.
Tim, give us that staggering statistic just one more time so
Sure.
it sinks in.
About 130,000 current TRS retirees earn $1,000 a month or less. Many of them do not have any Social Security benefits. And what little Social Security benefits they have been reduced or completely eliminated by the federal government.
And explain why that occurs.
There are two provisions that the federal government has. One is called the government pension offset, which reduces an annuitant's spousal benefit. So if their spouse passes away or they get divorced, they become ineligible for the Social Security benefit from their spouse's earning history. Or if they earn their own Social Security benefits, it's reduced by something called the windfall elimination provision, which is another benefit that we're trying to fix on Capitol Hill.
Members, any questions? Yeah, Representative Slauson.
I'm a little new here. So can you tell me, I don't know how that correlates to years of service. That's such a small amount. So how long have those teachers been serving our kids?
Yeah, of course, our teacher, yes, and so glad to have the opportunity to talk to you about this. Our TRS covers all school employee positions. And so years of service for an educator may get you to a higher annuity, but years of service as a school bus driver or another ancillary position within the school district at a much lower wage, especially years ago, when there are more than 200 TRS retirees now that are over age 100. And so their years of service contributions were at times when those earnings were much less. And so those annuities can be much lower. Yeah,
Thank
did I answer that question?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate the question.
And Tim, how many retired teachers in total? What total universe are we talking about?
Well, current TRS retirees, and Brian Guthrie, Director of TRS, may be able to provide a more accurate answer. I think it's over 450,000 current TRS retirees, probably more than that at this point in time. And we do lose quite a few retirees, of course, every year, but we also see a higher retirement class a little bit more every year as well.
Thanks for your testimony today, members. Any questions? We appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good seeing you.
All right. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on, for, or against House Bill 1846? If not, the chair recognizes the Honorable Dr. Allen to close on House Bill 1846.
Usually at this point, I would say I close, but I must say I have two children who retired. My daughter retired from McGregor Elementary as a school principal. My son retired from HISD, Jones High School, as a principal. I have a granddaughter now who is assistant principal at Dede Middle School. And so you see, this is important because teachers don't earn Social Security. I get a Social Security check because when I came here 17 years ago, I earned the rest of my points. But that check is $169 a month. I don't know what I spend that on. I really don't. So this is necessary, members, and I ask you to please pass this bill so that teachers can have some assist. Thank you.
Thank you. House Bill 1846 will be left pending at this time. Can you give the Herrero? Let's see, Chair calls up House Bill 3207 by Representative Herrero and recognizes Representative Herrero, also my classmate, to explain his bill.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to explain House Bill 3207. And before I do, let me say that if your daughter were here, we could talk about how our respective children remind us of how our first session wasn't just yesterday. Their growth and maturity obviously reminds us otherwise.
Certainly
So,
growth. I don't know about the latter.
yeah, I know for a fact if she's anything like you, so, or maybe she better yet takes after her mom. So.
Precisely.
Nevertheless, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Thank you for allowing me to explain House Bill 3207. House Bill 3207 prevents TRS from withholding monthly benefit payments if a school district retiree returns to work temporarily in areas subject to a disaster declaration. As many of us know, during the COVID-19 pandemic, there was a strain on the public school system and the number of employees that they would have available at any given time. So in order to help retirees, anywhere from retired school teachers to retired bus drivers, return to work as a means to try to help the school district. And unfortunately, they were penalized for those efforts. And so what this bill does, it tries to prevent those negative effects of individuals that are merely trying to help by providing a service that they did their whole life. So House Bill 3207 helps our retirees in those situations where they've been willing to come back to work to help our public system.
Members, any question? Chair Herrero? We'll call you back up to close, Mr.
I'd
Chairman.
like to reserve the right to close. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Chairman.
you. All right, Chair calls up the ubiquitous Tim Lee, Executive Director of the Texas Retired Teachers Association.
Thank you so much. My name is Tim Lee. I'm the Executive Director of TRTA, and I'm for the bill. This is another great and creative solution. Just one, important statistic in the most recent crisis that we had in the winter storm, our foundation raised over $250,000 to distribute to retirees in financial need. One of the things that we were told is that a lot of them, in order to help pay for damages, looked for work to help their school districts as well. And I believe TRS would even say there are times that they get frustrated with the return to work laws that they currently have to respond to. So I just want to say again, thank you, Representative, for this creative solution. Retirees want to help schools. And if we can find a way to do that, especially during a disaster, without them being penalized for returning to work, I think that's a great opportunity. We fully support the bill.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Members, any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. The chair calls up Brian Guthrie, who's here as a resource witness. Brian, do you mind joining us just really quickly to answer a couple of questions about this bill?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members. My name is Brian Guthrie. I'm the Executive Director of the Teacher Retirement System.
Super. Thanks for your testimony today. Just a couple of questions. Why do we have this penalty in place? Because it seems counterintuitive. We want the human capital, especially during experienced human capital during times of emergency, and there's a penalty if they return to work. Your views on why this policy exists.
So this dates back to 2005. Back at that time, prior to the 2005 session in 2003, there was a closing of a federal loophole related to Social Security, which caused a massive retirement influx into the system. And a lot of those retirees immediately returned back to work. And so in 2005, there were significant changes made to the employment after retirement rules to change behavior or to discourage the behavior that we were seeing, which was someone would retire as soon as they were eligible and then immediately return back to work in the same position. So there were a couple of things that were added at the time that including the surcharges, which is not necessarily a topic of this bill, but those retirees would return to work in a position that could otherwise be occupied by an active educator. And so their surcharges were added so that the retirement system would receive the contribution from those retirees. In addition,
Just one question about that. And it got expensive, right? Because a lot of people were coming back. Is that it was causing extra expense to the system?
So it was causing, it was actually impacting the actuarial soundness of the fund
I got
because
it.
we weren't getting the contributions that we otherwise would have. So the surcharges are one issue, but the particular issue with the penalty is that in order to change behavior, the laws were created and structured in a way to discourage folks from working full time. Unless they had a significant break of service. And they can, so the current rules is you have to sit out 1 month regardless. If you sit out a year, you can come back without penalty. If you retired before 2011, you can come back without penalty. However, if you fall into that gray area where you have a month break, but you don't want to wait a full year before returning, you can only work half time or less. And again, that was designed to discourage the behavior that we were seeing, which was folks retiring and immediately coming back into the same position and working full time.
And because this would be time limited during the pendency of an emergency declaration, there are sort of guardrails here that would limit exposure by the state. Any downside to doing this in your view?
I think that it is a creative solution to the current issue, and no, we do not believe there will be a significant impact.
Yeah, because it just seems like a no-brainer for us to do, especially during times of emergency when you need people who are experienced to come back into the system. Members, any questions? Thanks for your testimony. Oh, you do.
Thank
Yes,
thank you,
Vice
Mr.
Chair.
Chairman. Appreciate you being here and thank you for your leadership. So in this particular situation, obviously you gave great history as to how it occurred back in 2005. But are there other instances outside of this one that we need to take a look at, in your opinion as well, just like to have the members get educated on that topic as well, where we have to address similar type of situation?
One other issue that is percolating, I will say, and I don't want to presume action by our Board of Trustees, but we do have a board meeting next week. And we have been asked by the members of the House Appropriations Subcommittee on Article 3 to help with the summer school issue, because whatever legislation would be considered here, it could take immediate effect, but by then districts will have already made their decisions for hiring for summer school.
Right.
And so we are looking at adopting an emergency rule. We're going to ask our board to do so. That would basically change the definition of a substitute that would allow any retiree to come back to work this summer without penalty to help out with summer school.
Very good. Thank you very much for the clarification.
Thanks for your testimony today. Chair recognizes the presence of the Honorable Sergio Munoz from Hidalgo County, Texas. Thank you for being here. And thank you. Any members, any further questions? Director Guthrie, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
All right. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on, for, or against House Bill 3207? If not, the chair recognizes Representative Herrero to close on House Bill 3207.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, again, thank you for the opportunity to explain House Bill 3207. And I'm extremely grateful, Mr. Chair, for calling the resource witness. I was trying to figure out how to articulate the point, but through your questions, it was said very well. So thank you for that. This is very narrowly tailored to address a specific situation. And so I'd hope for your favorable consideration of this bill.
Members, anybody else want to JA this bill? Yeah, so just
Yeah,
check with the members of the committee.
I will definitely do
I
that.
certainly would as well.
We've got then those 3 slots.
Great idea. And thanks for bringing it.
Thank you. Maybe
Appreciate you, Mr. Chairman.
likewise.
Thank you. At this time, House Bill 3207 will be left pending. All right. Let's see, how are we doing on? No? Okay. The chair lays out House Bill 2936 by Representative Frank relating to an optional service retirement annuity of the Employee Retirement System of Texas, and recognizes Representative Frank to explain his bill. Welcome.
Thank you. I never have done this. Can I pass these out?
Yeah, I think Scion can help. Thanks.
Thank you. Brought pictures. Appreciate the opportunity, Chairman Chia, to lay this bill out. We discussed it the other day. This has to do with state employees' pensions and the way they receive their payments. While state retirees currently have 6 ways to receive pension payments, they all have one huge problem. They are fixed payments that are worth less every year. We all know that. What if we could provide state employees with a payment that increases slightly each year and doesn't cost the state money, as I do realize we're in pretty bad shape on this, on the pension plan. So this does, and it's not magic, actually. It just means you would actually start at a lower amount, and I'll show you on the what you have in front of you. What the bill actually does is it requires ERS to develop a cost of living adjustment option, and it is just an option for most standard ERS employees, with a gradually increasing annuity payment over time, calculated, and this is obviously very important, calculated to be actuarially neutral, so that the benefit is reduced at the onset of retirement. And that's why I have the illustration there for you. Again, I would just note it has no cost to the state, as you can tell from the fiscal note. It simply provides another option to our retirees. So the 2 pages I have for you, the second page is actually the 6 different options. I didn't know this, but the 6 different options that you can take your payments. Obviously, the first one, if you want to maximize, it's just you. If you want to have the later to die of you or your spouse, you can receive that fixed payment. But if you look at that first column, it means you're going to take a lower amount, right? And so what this would do, this would give another option. You would actually start with a lower amount. If you go back on the first page on the 1-pager, you would start with a lower amount as opposed to getting a fixed payment that is worth less for your entire retirement. You would start at a lower amount, and that would increase slightly, and it's up to ERS to make sure it is done in a way that is actuarially neutral. So to me, it addresses the one in a zero cost way, the biggest negative when you retire. It won't put our state employees in a position where their checks pay for less every year, and it doesn't cost the state. And the last thing I will close with is it is just an option. Nobody is forced to do this. This is just one of those options that you would have. The folks at ERS have said they can implement this fairly easily, and you guys can ask them. With that, I would close and appreciate your consideration of this. Be happy to answer any questions.
Members, any questions of Chairman Frank?
I brought pictures. What do you want?
Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll call you back up to close.
All right, thank you very much.
The chair calls up Ann Bishop, Executive Director of the Texas Public Employees Association. Ann is for the bill.
Yes, sir. I'm Ann Bishop, Executive Director of Texas Public Employees Association. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and thank you for your service. TPEA is for the bill. As the Arthur laid out, it is an option for state employees to take at retirement. And anything that creates an option for state employees is certainly a good thing for retirement. It also, as he said, addresses the issue of not having a COLA. Just like the teacher's retirement system that you heard earlier, the employees' retirement system, retirees have not seen a COLA since 2001. And the average benefit paid to an employee monthly benefit is $1,746. And that actually is misleading because I personally don't like averages because that is an average. That means a lot of people are receiving less than that. And although they are receiving Social Security, as we all know, that's not a lot either when you factor in the wages that you have for state employees. So if we're never going to see a COLA for our retirees, then certainly this is an option. But I would advocate and also ask that at some point, the state needs to have enough money to take care of their retirees. This is your workforce. They will be in retirement for a number of years. There is a reason why the average entry age for state employment is 35 years old. People can't afford it to come to work for 40 years for the state and then retire. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Just to give people context, and you've given a long time to the state in your service. Can you talk about your career and what you did before this role?
Certainly. I am a former executive director of Employees Retirement System for 11 years. I've been talking about retirement since 2004. I know the unintended consequences of acts, positive and negative. Sometimes they're positive and sometimes they're negative. Actuarially soundness is very hard to achieve because it is a bunch of factors that go into it. And a lot of things can change or challenge those factors. Not only is it investments, which people are very familiar with, but bills also. rushed to retirement. In 2003-04, my first session, I had to come testify about the bill that was a retirement incentive for state employees at the time. And you might know, because that was your first session here, that the fund became actuarially unsound in part because the state encouraged people retire at their first eligibility. And that has an impact. Prior to that, I ran 3 state agencies. I also have been in the private sector, and like Representative Allen, don't add up all the years, but I've been both in public and private sector. So I know the benefit of a 401k or a defined contribution plan. I know the benefit of a defined benefit plan and how those things can work together in somebody's career or not work together in somebody's
And you didn't run
career.
little agencies either, did you? Can you name, you didn't run tiny little agencies either. You ran some.
Yes, sir, I ran. I started out as a controller's office employee and moved there as a deputy controller when the controller Bullock became a senator. I took over, lieutenant governor. I took over the Department of Information Resources, which was initially an unknown agency with a lot of controversy because they have to provide standards and rules for people to comply with. So some of it's regulatory, but I will say giving out money is much more fun than being in a regulatory agency. I've also worked for Texas Education Agency, Texas Youth Commission, and as chief of staff for Governor Perry. Period.
So thank you for your long service. Members, we have a wealth of experience here if you want to ask any questions. Thank you for being here
Thank you.
today. All right. Does anybody want to hear from a resource witness, members? No, we're okay? Okay. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on, for, or against House Bill 2936? If not, the chair recognizes Representative Frank to close on House Bill 2936.
And thank y'all for your time. I'll just be real brief. It doesn't cost the state money. It just provides options. And I think in most cases, it's the right option for people to take if it's explained to them that they can receive their pay in a way that the purchasing power won't decrease, and I would appreciate y'all's favorable consideration.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for being here today. This time, House Bill 2936 will be left pending. All right. Chair lays out House Bill 2109 by Representative Wu relating to preventing the loss of benefits by certain retirees of the Texas Retirement System of Texas who resume service. The Representative Vo offers up a committee substitute to House Bill 2109, and the chair recognizes Representative Wu to explain his bill. Welcome.
Make sure you actually got, do you guys get the committee sub or?
I think is the committee sub being passed around now? Members, you should be receiving it in just a moment.
So just real quickly, I know the committee sub came to y'all at the last moment, but it really just modified the language in the way that TRS wanted it. It does basically exactly the same thing. It's just in the language is structured that they say they needed it to work correctly. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, members. This is when I was on PIFS last session, I want to say season, but this is not a game. Maybe, I don't know. But this is relating to something that I think this committee's already heard about this morning, and that is dealing with teachers who have retired and then are being asked to come back to work. And teachers either don't know that there is a rule that they can't work over a certain amount of time in that period, or they're not told by their employers that they're over their time. This is a big problem because the rules that we put into place, maybe like about a decade and a half ago, are very, very strict. There is no leeway that as soon as they find out a teacher's over, they must assess a penalty, and the teachers cannot get their benefits until the full penalty is paid. There is no exception to that, period, the end. The big problem also is that TRS, because there is a significant delay in when they find out, the retired teacher doesn't get notified that there is now a penalty until months after they've incurred a penalty. So they might still be in that employment phase where they're still working too many hours, and then they have this huge buildup of a fine that they cannot pay, and so they're out their entire monthly benefits. I talked to we've been working on TRS for a while on this. The total number of teachers that retired teachers that this affects every year is like somewhere around 500, and they've done everything they could within within the law and within their powers to try to minimize this. The real cause of this, from what I've looked at and from talking to people, is really the school districts. It's really the schools, because one, they're not informing the retired teachers, hey, we're begging you to come back and fill in these positions, but here, make sure you remember there's this rule. And the second thing is the school districts aren't keeping track of these these retired teachers' work hours to remind themselves and remind the retired teachers, hey, you can't go over this cap, right? Should be something fairly simple to do administratively, but we still have 500 plus teachers, retired teachers every single year who get hit really, really hard with this. And it could be the loss of their benefits checks for months, if not longer, because they simply are unable to pay the fine off, especially with their checks not coming in. So what this bill would do, and what the committee sub would do, is essentially create a warning system, so that the first time that this happens, the teachers would get a notice saying, hey, you're over, we're not going to hit you this time, but you need to do something. The second time you get a notice, you have to pay the fine. And then the third strike would be you're getting cut off. Okay. And so this should be more than adequate. And I know out of I think almost hundreds of thousands of teachers who are retired, 500 may not seem like a big number, but I think that's still 500 too many. That these are people who spent their entire lives working to educate our state, and they deserve like a little bit more justice than just kind of being like tossed into a hole until they can dig themselves out. This especially affects smaller school districts, because HISD can find more people to work. But where we're hearing the biggest problems are from rural members and their districts, where they're begging their only retired school bus driver to please come back. You have to drive, or the kids don't go to school. And it could be another 6 months before they find another qualified bus driver. And they're just begging them, like, if you don't come and drive the kids, there is no school. And they're caught in these retired teachers and teachers, or these employees in her TRS system. They're caught in this, damned if you do, damned if you don't sort of position of sometimes they even know that they're going to be in violation, but we've gotten letters saying like, look, I know that I would be in violation, but I can't let these kids not go to school. It was a choice I made. I don't regret it. I'm just asking for help. And this is what we're trying to do. Okay.
Members, any questions? Representative Wu? We'll call you back up, Representative. The chair calls up Tim Lee, Executive Director of the Texas Retired Teachers Association, for the bill.
Thank you so much. My name is Tim Lee. I'm the Executive Director of the Texas Retired Teachers Association, and we are for the bill. Right now, there are thousands of retired teachers watching this hearing. We are broadcasting it. This is our TRTA day at the Capitol. We cannot be here because of circumstances. Normally, we would have hundreds of red shirts probably waiting to come in this room. But I want to tell you all that they are very interested in this particular issue. Many of them have returned to work to find out about these rules after a penalty has shown up. And if you're living on the margins and you're returning to work to try to earn a little extra income, to find out that you've worked an hour overtime or whatever that case may be, to lose your entire monthly annuity, it hurts. And one of the issues that we have with our return to work discussion is that if you're not that 12-month retiree, and I thought Director Guthrie did an excellent job of laying out why we do this. And I'm happy to answer any questions. I was here in 2005 when we instituted these laws or these rules. But if you're not that 12-month retiree and you work just an hour in the school district, your clock resets. So you are now not an 11-month or a 10-month, consecutive month retiree. Now you're a day one retiree. So if you're having to return to work because you can't pay your bills, you may be 3 years in retirement, but could never be a 12-month consecutive retiree. So there are a lot of rules, a lot of regulations. I mean, there are 1.5 million TRS folks, 1,100 school districts, 6 million public school kids, a lot of rules. And sometimes those rules don't get adequately conveyed at the district level, as Representative Wu described. And so the system of a warning is a great idea. We all would love a warning if we're about ready to do something wrong and somebody say, hey, don't do that again. And so I think that's what this is intended to do. I think it alerts not only the retiree, but the district. Oops, we had an infraction. I think this is, again, another creative solution and one that Representative Wu has championed, and I really appreciate it. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Members, any questions? Vice Chair Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tim, great to see you. Thank you for the wonderful testimony. Just a quick question. So in this bill specifically, Representative Wu talked about the population being impacted about 500 people. Then the commentary was made that it perhaps more in rural areas than more populated communities. Can you kind of give any stats or figures on that to kind of give us an understanding of that dynamic a little bit deeper?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. I know that last session, as Representative Wu said, we worked on this as well. It seemed like those numbers were higher. We also talked last session about what we called, I think, habitual offenders, people who were just sort of returned to work and tried to get past the rule. And clearly, we're not trying to create a system where habitual offenders are going to make it easier for them. Something we should all be concerned about. But the numbers probably change quite a little bit depending on hiring and areas of school need. And so the agency may have more up-to-date figures than me. So I would be hesitant to offer numbers. What I do know is that we get all kinds of cases.
Yeah.
Some people who who are just in a bad situation and couldn't do anything to avoid it.
Right.
You may have a teacher who's a science teacher who is required to do a lab in their reporting hours, but because they're a retired school employee who doesn't need to do labs anymore because they've already got their lessons planned for 30 years figured out, they still report the lab hour and it puts them over. And so there's just a lot of these different circumstances. And it's a great question. And I try to provide as much information as I can.
Oh, thank you, Tim.
Yes, sir.
Members, any more questions for Mr. Lee? Thanks for your testimony. Oh, sorry, Representative Stevenson. Yes.
Most more comment, especially the rural, because in Wharton, I know we have a bus on the corner of the school saying bus drivers needed.
Mhm.
The second part of that is they have offered up to $15 an hour. They still don't get anybody because they also have the crazy rules. If somebody wants to do this, they can't just come and drive the buses because they got all these safety rules for driving a bus. So that prevents them doing it. You can't hire anybody, so the bus sits there. That's a real problem in the rural. So if nobody do a records, I know that for a very
Yes.
fact. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Thank you so much. And bus drivers are certainly one of those areas where we need more potential bandwidth and a pool of folks to employ. I agree.
Members, any questions for Mr. Lee? Thanks for your testimony.
Thank you so much,
today.
sir.
Thank you. All right, the chair calls up Beeman Floyd, Texas Association of School Administrators, for the bill. Welcome, Beeman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Beeman Floyd. I'm representing the Texas Association of School Administrators, and we are for the bill. This is one of those things that we think is necessary in statute to help us, and something that we hope we never have to use. School districts do make mistakes, and we think that this bill is part of the general theme of better and clearer understanding of the rules and the interaction between TRS and the school districts, especially in these discrete spaces like that seem with retire, rehire. I also think that Mr. Lee put his finger on it. One of the issues that we have is an issue of virtue, maybe, which is that you have this hard hour threshold, and then people go to work for a school, and then guess what? People get the job done. One of the things that happens in schools is you say, oh no, we've got a problem and we need a bus driver to take an extra shift, and people do it. Or, oh no, we've got a crisis because somebody retired or somebody left the school district and we need to teach a new section, and somebody does it. And that's a space where you have these mistakes that wind up being financial cataclysms for a person if they're suddenly told, oh, you don't get your benefit paid back. So we think this is great. It will help educate us, frankly, and will help us reduce this mistake. So not only do you address the actual structure of the problem financially, but you also make a good imperative for education between TRS and the school districts. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Beeman, just a quick question. Is this, does this sort of underline a training opportunity for school districts that TASA can provide?
Absolutely.
If there's a gap here where school districts are, and I know there are a gajillion rules, and I'm very, very sympathetic as a former school board member. But it seems like if you have this this repeat problem, that training could be a big piece of this.
Yes, it absolutely does. And that is something that we do and try to do for the school districts. And we think it's actually probably critical now because as TRS indicated earlier, they're working on, we have a big problem coming our way with regard to catching people up from COVID. And we think it's multifaceted, multi-pronged. We think that the rule that TRS talked about adopting to bring retirees back in is like first phase of probably a 3-year remediation program.
And when you say catching people back up,
I mean,
mitigating learning loss as a result of the pandemic, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And that is really going to be a thing. And so to the extent that this might create a situation where districts who have never done this, who have never really had very many retirees, are out actually saying, we got to get some people in here to help us with extra sections, to help us with those learning loss catch up. We need to make sure everybody knows what they're doing. And we think this will be helpful to catch the critical error. But yes, Mr. Chairman, we also think it indicates a training space for us.
Excellent. Members, any questions? Thank you for your testimony today.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Chair calls up Brian Guthrie, Executive Director of TRS, as a resource witness, neutral on the bill.
Good morning again, Mr. Chairman, members. My name is Brian Guthrie. I'm the Executive Director of the Teacher Retirement System.
Brian, thanks for being here today. This highlights sort of an opportunity for TASA, for TRS, for Texas retired teachers to do additional training. Any obstacles that you see with a 3-strike system so that the rules are not punitive? I'd like to learn a little bit more about what the universe looks like for these habitual offenders, folks
Sure.
who are trying to game the system versus those who are trying to be virtuous and do the job that's in front of them.
Sure, absolutely. So let me address that last question first. And so we've taken a look at the numbers, and this is over the last 3 years. So over the last 3 years, we've had 38,000 and some change retirees who have returned to work. Of those, we've had 2,400 violations. However, those 2,400 violations were for 699 discrete retirees. So what we have is a situation where you have a number of repeat violators who are doing this over the course of several months. And Representative Wu hit on the problem. There's a lag time between when we find out, we get the information from the district a month later, or sometimes a month and a half later, to see that the retiree has actually exceeded the number of hours, and then the penalty is immediately enforced. And so the legislation that's before you now would actually provide that first strike kind of grace period. And then if the second strike is not as punitive as the current rule either. So they have a number of chances to change their behavior. And so I think that this is a very good solution to the problem. I have expressed frustration in my role as executive director before in applying these rules because there's no leeway. It's very cut and dry. And have seen a number of appeals cross my desk where it's not the habitual offenders. These folks were legitimately trying to get their work done and had no idea that they had crossed the line.
And you had limited discretion.
I had no
if any,
discretion.
If any.
I had no discretion. And so I think that by providing this warning letter for the first strike, a less punitive measure for the second strike, I think allows for getting the word out. And to Beeman's point earlier, I think there's an education gap here that we can help close with the districts, but that also his association can help close with the administrators.
So the education piece might reduce the number further, but the lag issue, that it's a technology lag, a reporting lag, some time lag, that's ultimately still going to catch some people.
It is.
And this would give you and the agency some discretion so that they don't suffer sort of outsized, unjust consequences as a result of a mistake.
That's right. So the way that the current system works is, we get employment information from all the districts on a monthly basis. We get it for the prior month and we get it by the 11th. So let's say for this month, we will get March reports in next week. Included in those amounts, we will see that perhaps there are someone who has violated employment after retirement. Well, they've already done that. They have already violated it. And now they're probably doing the same thing in April. By the time we get notice out to them or to the district, they could have gone 2 months where they've exceeded the rules, and there's nothing to do except for they lose their annuity for those 2 months.
And are those multiple violations if they've exceeded the rules?
Yes.
Right. So well, something to think about. I think this is a good approach, but they might get through those 3 strikes pretty quickly, even in 1 month, right? If there are multiple violations.
Well, it's a monthly violation.
Okay.
So in the situation I just described, they would be on their second strike by the time we notified them. We're trying to cut down on that lag, but it's just that we don't get the information real time, and it's really a district issue to track it. And it depends on the district. Some are more sophisticated than others in how they track time. And so some are on top of it and some aren't. And it's just sort of the nature of where we find ourselves.
Members, any questions? Yes, Representative Stevenson.
I've just heard about, is that the only way to measure this is time? Is there another way we can measure this?
We also, you could also look at the number of days worked, but we do employ that in some special situations, depending upon what position the person may be in. But for the most part, time is the easiest way to do it.
No, but it may not be the most fairest way.
It may not be the most fair way, but in terms of the information that we have at our disposal in order to measure this sort of, uniformly across the state.
Well, I'd like you to keep looking at it.
Oh, for sure. We'll continue to look for different. Believe me, we've been over it. We continue to look at this on an ongoing basis, trying to find different ways to resolve these kinds of issues.
Members, any further questions? Appreciate your time today.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on, for, or against House Bill 2109 by Representative Wu? Hearing none, the chair recognizes Representative Wu to close on House Bill 2109.
Oh, thank you so much. I think this is a very straightforward problem. I think this problem is going to get a lot worse because, especially this coming summer, as we're starting to open up more, we're going to have a lot of kids coming back to school who are a year behind or more because of the learning loss due to COVID. We're going to need a lot of hands on deck to come in and do tutoring, to do supplemental work. There's only one place to find teachers who can help kids learn, and that is retired teachers and other professionals. So there's going to be a lot of teachers being asked to come back. I think TRS is trying to work on a rule for the summer, but that may only be legally possible for the summer to make an exemption. But I think this is something that needs is going to need a statutory solution at some point. My preference actually would be to penalize the school districts instead and make them pay for the amount. I'm not sure I'm not sure politically that would fly over in the Senate for various reasons. And I'm not sure legally we can do that without doing a lot of other stuff.
Let's not snatch defeat from the jaws of victory here.
But we'll keep looking at it, but I appreciate your time.
All right. And if you could get me a JA form for this one. Thanks for bringing
Sure,
this. So
absolutely.
members, any final
Oh,
questions?
and we'll send out the data sheet that TRS gave us to the committee members.
Please do. Thank you, Representative Wu. At this time, the chair withdraws the committee substitute to House Bill 2109. House Bill 2109 will be left pending at this time. All right. The chair lays out House Bill 2022 relating to the enrollment of certain retirees in the Texas Public School Employees Group Insurance Program and recognizes Chairman Darby to explain his bill. Welcome, Chairman Darby.
It's always good to be before this august committee.
August.
Yes, absolutely. It's one of my favorite committees, by the way, because you do good work. Always good to see my colleagues here. It's my honor to lay out House Bill 2022. A lot of you on this committee know about this bill. Representative Capriglione last session filed this bill and advanced it, and we were in different circumstances. Then we got a different fiscal report back then than we do today, and so we wanted to advance this forward. Also, I want to recognize that there were 5 bills exactly similar to this bill, and the chairman determined that we need to move forward with one bill, and he reached out to all the bill authors, including Representative Rogers and Jarvis Johnson and Herrero and Riley Shaw, and we've all kind of consolidated. Those are all my joint authors on this bill. So with the direction of the chair, I want to thank the members of this committee for allowing me the opportunity to lay this bill out. As many of you know, the 85th legislature made significant changes to TRS care enrollment. These were times that we saw increased premiums for families, dependents. They were concerned about future growth and what their costs for their TRS care. And so the legislature was well intended, and I think we made a significant steps forward to allow another product to come on the market with regard to Medicare insurance. And these were heavily marketed by those folks, and retirees were naturally concerned about the rising costs. And so they had a very short period of time to make the selection, about a month and a half. Folks who had paid into TRS care for years and years, their entire term of service at the education community, they paid into that, but in a month and a half, they had to make a very important financial decision. Well, they did. And so some of them chose wisely, and some of them, their own individual circumstances, proved detrimental to them. And so what this bill does is gives what I'm characterizing as a golden ticket that allows those folks who were Medicare eligible and retired between January 1 of 2017 and before December 31 of 2019 to re-enroll back into TRS care. Now, the 22,000 that was estimated on the fiscal note under Representative Capriglione's bill has now been reduced to, there may be 18,000 eligible, but they're only estimated 3,622 retirees that might take advantage of this. And so the fiscal note is reduced dramatically, 3 million some change in 2022 and about 5 million in 2023. So TRS has also indicated that they had the ability to absorb these retirees should they take advantage of this opportunity. And so, and again, this bill is years in the making. We created this. The legislature was trying to do some good, and we did do some good, but we caught some folks in an area that they were, quite frankly, perhaps unprepared and perhaps rushed to make a decision. And if they so choose and they are eligible, then they have the ability to get back into TRS care. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Representative Capriglione.
Thank you, Representative Darby. And you're right in terms of your layout. This is something that caught a lot of folks just because of the way that it was set up and some decisions that were made. But I'm thankful that you worked with all these other members to be able to come up with one solution. And you took what probably was a good idea last time and made it even better. So we appreciate that.
Well, we appreciate your leadership on the issue.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Members, additional questions of Chairman Darby? Thank you. We'll call you back up to close.
Thank you.
Chair recognizes Tim Lee, Executive Director, Texas Retired Teachers Association, for the bill.
My name is Tim Lee. I'm the Executive Director of the Texas Retired Teachers Association. We are for the bill. Tremendous bill layout by Chairman Darby. I, again, think about many of the friends that I have in the legislature, and one that I've had for a long time is Drew Darby. Thank you so much, sir, for all of your work and effort. We have, I spoke to a retired teacher last night, and she's watching today, and she has been affected by this. I cannot do a better job than what he did in laying this bill out. TRS does an amazing job of running one of the best TRS supplemental healthcare programs, in the country for retirees' health insurance. When we made the changes, which TRTA supported in 2017, the legislature took action during the regular session, and then they came back in a special session and took more action. Because of that extra work the legislature did, made big improvements, but it also delayed the time that a retiree had the chance to make a decision because we were still waiting to hear what the legislature was going to do, which was amazing, but TRS couldn't get the materials out. And so what happened is a lot of the insurance community that sell these products to 65 and over retirees, I mean, we've all seen the commercials, especially in October through December. You're just inundated with Medicare supplement commercials. And so if you're questioning what may happen to my health insurance, especially if my doctor is saying, I don't think we're going to take the plan that TRS Care is going to offer, you start looking for an exit strategy. And you make those decisions before you have a complete picture. And so this bill is drafted in a smart way. It has a responsible fiscal note. And I would say that TRS is doing their best to make a good guess as to how many people this will affect. But remember what Chair Darby said. These people paid into TRS Care their entire career. And in this one moment, they have lost access to the program that they paid for as an active teacher their entire 30-plus career. There is no other payor for TRS Care that has always been there other than the school teachers, active school teachers who then retire. So we complement this bill. We know it's necessary. We're happy to support it. And I'd answer any questions y'all may have.
Members, any questions? No? Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your testimony today. And just a comment for the thousands of teachers that are watching at home who you represent. Tim Lee is not the only person who is supporting all of these bills. I want to let you know that he ably represents you, but there are a number of people who have been kind enough to register their support for all of these bills, this bill specifically. And what they do is they register their support electronically, and we have that on our iPad. So we know that there's just not one person, despite one person testifying. I also want to thank Tim and the other witnesses because it allows us to be very efficient with our time and get through a lot of bills in one sitting. So just for the people who are watching at home, that there is a lot of support for bills, for these bills specifically, in this case, Chairman Darby's bill. But the fact that Tim keeps getting back up is not an anomaly in the system. It's just a one way for us to be efficient and get through a lot of these propositions at one time. So we're grateful. The next thing I would mention is that many bill authors, as Chairman Darby said, have agreed to consolidate their bills that are on the same subject if they're identical, and that's happening throughout the agenda today. So thank your colleagues so that we didn't have to lay out 5, 6 different bills on a particular proposition. Everybody got together and agreed that one person would move forward. In the case of this bill, it's going to be Chairman Darby. So just those comments for context. And
Chairman,
thank you for your testimony.
Thank you so much.
You
Appreciate
bet.
it.
All right. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on, for, or against House Bill 2022? If not, the chair recognizes Representative Darby to close on House Bill 2022.
Thank you, Chairman Angia. And I was on a Zoom call at 8:30 with my retired teachers back in San Angelo and the retired teachers from Coke County and Runnels County and Pomeranian County. I told them I was going to have to leave to come lay out this bill. I told them to get on their TV, so I would just wave to the camera for my teachers back home. And but anyway, thank you for this opportunity. I will point out that this re-enrollment ceases, or the opportunity ceases, December 31, 2023, and this subsection expires on September 1, 2024. So this is just a small window of opportunity, and I thank each member of this committee for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Without a
Chairman.
close.
And if you, I know your JAs are already filled, but if you have a co-author opportunity, I'd love to
We
take
do.
you up on that.
We do.
love to support you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank y'all
Members,
very
any
much.
final questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you for your leadership. Thank you, Chairman.
House Bill 2022 will be left pending at this time. All right. We have Representative Gates here. All right. At this time, the chair lays out House Bill 4534 by Representative Gary Gates relating to a study by the Employee Retirement System of Texas of certain state pension and retirement reforms. The chair lays out House Bill 4534. I believe there's a substitute, members. So the chair lays out the substitute for House Bill 4534 and recognizes Representative Gates to explain his bill and substitute.
Good morning. Thank you, Chairman.
Welcome.
Thank you. Members of the committee, for this opportunity to come before you and lay out House Bill 4534. You know, a little background, the employee retirement system serves as a retirement system for more than 390,000 actively contributing, non-contributing retired members. According to the TRS, the system currently has a funding ratio of 66%. The ERS trust fund has assets valued around $28 billion and an accrued liability of $43 billion, resulting in an unfunded liability of close to $15 billion. This bill would address this by requiring ERS to study possible options for reducing the unfunded liability and bringing ERS closer to a solvent position. Without reform, ERS is on a path to run out of money by 2061 or sooner, according to the ERS report released this year, March 3rd. The committee substitute before you is a bill I worked on with several members of this committee, and it's a combination of multiple ideals put forth by myself and those members. This would establish a legislative workshop composed of 4 members of the House, 2 members of the public appointed by the Speaker, and 4 members of the Senate and 2 members of the public appointed by the Lieutenant Governor. The work group will work with the ERS to study and make recommendations on possible solutions to the problem the system is facing. Solutions in the bill include transition to a defined contribution plan for new hires, the use of a hybrid plan composed of a defined contribution plan, a defined benefit plan, an individual retirement savings account, stair-step increases to the state contribution to ERS, and the use of a cash balance plan, and a lump sum retirement options, and various adjustments to calculations used in establishing employee benefits. The bill is permissive in allowing the work group to expand their scope of study. And finally, the bill establishes a joint interim committee on a pension revenue enhancement plan for the ERS system to study and review via a pilot program the cost effectiveness and feasibility of implementing a pension revenue enhancement plan to create an additional source of funding for ERS. The bill sets out composition and provides for the administration of the joint interim committee. In conclusion, Bill 4534 would put the legislature in a better position to make the necessary reforms to ERS in the future. Mr. Chairman and members, thank you for your time and for the opportunity to bring this important bill before this committee. Glad to answer any questions the committee has. And thank you again, Mr. Chairman. I reserve the right to close.
Thank you, Representative Gates. Members, any questions of Representative Gates? Yes,
Thanks, Chairman.
Vice Chairman Parker.
Representative Gates, thank you for being here and thank you for your leadership and putting together some of these items that you've been working on. I know tirelessly that Representative Stevenson and so many others have been for a long time. So it's critical that we take these kinds of steps and get serious about solving these problems once and for all. And so just appreciate you bringing it forward today.
You're welcome. Thank you, Representative.
So we'll call you back up to close. And just one thing that is this is just kind of an overarching comment, and for the members of the committee who have been on here, something has crept into the legislative lexicon recently, and that is a reservation of a right to close. No such right exists that one can reserve. Chairs, one can ask a chair to come back up to close rather than reserve that right. Just a clarification for the members, and I think it would speak to your time and grade here when you say, Mr. Chairman, if you would kindly call me up to close rather than reserve a right that doesn't exist. Just a little footnote, legislative fun. Thank you, Representative. We'll call you back up to close.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, the chair calls up Rod Bordelon, Texas Public Policy Foundation, for the bill. There's another familiar face, former agency head.
Good to see you, Mr. Chairman,
See you.
members. I'm Rod Bordelon with Texas Public Policy Foundation. And for the record, I'm not seeking to reserve any time. I will leave it all up here.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you.
For you. I am here, as I said, on behalf of Texas Public Policy Foundation. We are testifying in favor of this bill. I was here last week, and there are a number of bills since then, and today. A lot of them have great ideas. I think we're all in agreement that that there's a problem that needs to be fixed, and that's the unfunded liability. And it's not just approaching $15 billion. It continues to grow pretty rapidly, and I think that was the testimony of my friends at ERS as well. Porter Wilson does a great job over there. The folks do as well, but numbers are numbers, and you can only do what you can do. And either some combination of the investment returns need to grow, the contributions need to grow, or we need to look at the benefits, or a combination of all. And this study, I think, is important, because I think that's what we need to do, is actually look at all of those, both sides of the ledger. At the same time, we need to look at the rights of the retirees and their interests, as well as, as well as the taxpayers of the state of Texas. And so I think something like this study would certainly do that. And for that reason, we're supportive. I just received the substitute, so I'm not as familiar with all the aspects of it, so I'll qualify on that. I did see the pilot program, and I know it's in another bill that's been filed this session. We haven't done an exhaustive study of it, but I think the concept of again adding other revenue would certainly be on the table, and we would not be opposed to that. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Members, any questions? All right. Thank you for your testimony today.
Thank you.
Chair calls up Ann Bishop, Executive Director of Texas Public Employees Association, neutral on the bill.
Thank you, and I appreciate you clarifying who I work for today. I'm Ann Bishop, Texas Public Employees Association, and we are testifying neutral on House Bill 4534. And my neutral testimony is not because we don't think that it's a good idea to explore these issues, but I have not seen the substitute. But my testimony was more about, we have to have a comprehensive approach to look at addressing the unfunded liability and not cause it to keep on growing. Of course, one of the other issues that I'm always talking about is that we need to take a holistic approach on these issues, that retirement plans should not be done in a vacuum. You need to look at workforce policy and salaries and all the other things that make your workforce a great workforce, and that implement all the legislation you pass. So I'm encouraged, and I appreciate your efforts and your attention. There's over 45 bills passed on the employees' retirement system pension plans, but there's a number of other bills that have to do with workforce issues. So we appreciate your attention. If you ever need anything, please give us a call. Thank you.
And rather than passed, you meant filed, right?
Yes.
Yes, right.
Yes. And I'll give you a study if you want to study.
Yeah, you probably, and that raises a really good question. You probably looked at some of these strategies while you were executive director. Is that right?
Yes, sir. And we did publish a very extensive, and I wasn't teasing, study in 2012 about these issues. And part of the concern or the issue is, what do you want to achieve? Is it that you want to achieve a stable contribution? And then if that's the goal, then these are the things that you can do to achieve it. If you want to reduce turnover, then these are the things that you can do. If you want to offer optional benefits or portability, there's all kinds of levers you can pull. Just defining what you want is a very big, important first step. I mean, I talked earlier, there's a reason why people come to work late, but there's also a reason why there's over 100,000 people who are non-contributing members in the ERS system. That means they came to work, they did not vest, and they left, but they left their money in. So I don't know whether that means they're going to come back, or whether they just forgot about their money, or whether or not they are using it as a savings account. But all these issues need to be addressed. It's not just one size fits all, and it's not just one piece.
Yeah, I think the big piece that we're all concerned about is that actuarial soundness and you know, making sure that we have an ERS for our state employees going forward. So I think that's what this study is ultimately going to try to solve for. And just provide different options to the legislature. But yeah, I agree. It's not like there are a ton of new ideas under the sun. It's just if we can all agree what we're trying to solve for,
Right.
then we can reverse engineer that.
And I'll give you an example, quick example of that. I know people talk about cash balance plans a lot, and they compare it to county and district or municipal retirement system.
Right.
Well, there's a little detail associated with that. And that is, if you are a member of the county and district or municipal retirement system as an employer, you have to pay the actuarially sound contribution. So the same thing that we've been asking the legislature for since 2003, the actuarially sound contribution, employers in that plan has to pay it. That's why there's not this big unfunded. Of course, other assumptions change and situations change that cause it not to be perfect, but it's not the panacea to have a flat contribution and never change. But there are those plans that can do that. So it depends on the goals. Thank you.
Thanks for your testimony today. All right. Let's see, is there anyone else who wishes to testify? Or sorry, at this time, the chair withdraws the committee substitute to House Bill 4534. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on for or against House Bill 4534? Hearing none, the chair recognizes Representative Gates to close on House Bill 4534. Did I do that wrong? Okay.
Thank you, Chairman. We all know how critical this situation is and needs to be addressed as quickly as possible. And with that, I close. Thank you.
Thank you, members. Any final questions of Representative Gates? Thanks for bringing this bill forward.
Okay.
We appreciate you consolidating all these really good ideas into this bill. So we'll try to get this thing moving.
Okay, appreciate that.
Thank you. At this time, so I'm going to do it right this time. At this time, the chair withdraws the committee substitute on House Bill 4534, and House Bill 4534 will be left pending at this time. All right. Okay. The chair lays out House Bill 3787 by Representative Dean relating to the loss of benefits by and the payment of certain employer contributions for certain retirees of TRS who resume service. Welcome, Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And I recognize Representative Dean to lay out his bill.
I thank you, Mr. Chairman, and nice to hear you pronounce Bordelon perfect.
It's 3 years at Tulane Law School that did that for me.
I knew there was some association.
Yes.
So always good to hear those names. Thank you all for the opportunity, Chairman. And today, we all know before the pandemic, during the pandemic, subsequent to, someone argued that we still have it, hiring teachers has been a tremendous burden, if you will, on large districts as well as small districts throughout our state. And what I'm trying to do with this bill, I heard a lot from the school districts, active teachers, as well retired teachers. when we have an opportunity to bring the retired teachers back, we don't have the instruments. So 3787 helps our retired teachers who wish to return to work and helps schools that are struggling to fill the teacher vacancies. The bill does 4 simple things while protecting the solvency of the TRS fund. First, under current statute, retired teachers are penalized if they work more than half time, resulting in having to forfeit their entire monthly retirement check. HB 3787 reduces the return to work penalties and establishes a 3-strike penalty system. This is the same as Representative Wu's bill that you heard earlier, who, by the way, is a joint author on this bill. Second, under current statute, retirees who retire before January 1st, 2011, may work full-time without penalty. It's been 10 years since the inception or the exemption date has been updated. HB 3787 updates the exemption date to January 1st, 2021. Teachers that have retired prior to January 1st, 2021 may work full-time without penalty. Third, under current statute, when a retired teacher returns to work, the ISD must pay a surcharge of roughly 16%. The surcharge is usually passed on to the retiree and essentially prevents ISDs from hiring the retired teacher. HB 3787 eliminates the surcharge. Fourth, HB 3787 tries to clarify a current contractor provision, although I've heard concerns with this portion and I'm open to amending or cutting it. Yesterday, the Article 3 subcommittee sent a letter to TRS asking to find a way to work this out, and I have a copy of the letter for the committee. Allowing retired teachers to return to work is necessary to help address the shortfall in staff and help districts tackle the student learning loss that has been exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic. Finally, members, this bill idea came from my local school districts and retired teachers in my district. We worked a lot with the Texas Retired Teachers Association on the language, and I want to thank them, and I believe Tim Lee is here to answer any questions. And Mr. Chairman, I would greatly appreciate the opportunity to close.
With pleasure.
Is that
with pleasure? That's
appropriate? Okay.
Perfectly stated,
Thank you, sir.
Representative Dean. Perfectly stated. Members, any questions of Representative Dean? We'll call you back up.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Chair calls up Timothy Lee, Executive Director of the Texas Retired Teachers Association, for the bill.
Thank you so much. My name is Tim Lee. I'm the Executive Director of the Texas Retired Teachers Association. We are for the bill. I want to thank Representative Dean for being so dedicated to his active and retired school employees in his district, as well as the state of Texas. We have the opportunity, when conferences were going on, we would attend a conference together, and he'd be there from the beginning until the end, always listening to every single issue, every item that people want to talk about, available for questions, very accessible, and I really appreciate that so much. One of my favorite legislative lexicon items is when somebody says, this is a simple little bill. This is actually a very thoughtful, comprehensive look at a circumstance, and many circumstances that have been, that we've heard some about already today. As the representative said, this one of the first items talks about modifying the exemption date for when full-time employment may be had with a retiree and not have to be subject to the half-time work restrictions. We have talked about this before in this committee. TRTA supported the initiatives in 2005 that instituted these provisions. We supported the modifications in 2011 that said, hey, if you retired prior to this certain date, then these rules will not affect you. It'll be prospective in nature. And usually what happens when you look at changing rules on return to work, it makes the actuary nervous because it starts to look like a potential pattern. If the legislature were doing this every session and saying, you know what, let's move that date 2 more years forward and making it easier. But the Texas legislature does not have a pattern of going back and changing those dates, in our opinion, to make the actuary nervous about essentially lowering the age of retirement. Somebody saying, well, you know, they're just going to exempt us, so I don't have to worry about this. They do it every session. Well, it's been 5 sessions. It's been 10 years. And so, you know, we're comfortable knowing the legislature only deals with this when it's appropriate. And this is one of those times. It's been 10 years. Another provision talks about retirees returning to work with a not-for-profit specializing in online tutoring or in-person tutoring. I will not talk forever about this portion, but I could. Retired teachers are ready to jersey up, get in the game, and provide tutoring to help make up for learning loss. Our charitable arm has been working in this area for over a year. And there are certain parts of both TEA and TRS that we're just trying to make sure are cleared path so that retirees are not subject to provisions that would slow that down. There are other items in here that talk about return to work. We spoke extensively about them. It's a great place to have it all in one place. Again, Representative Dean has done a great job of codifying these ideas. And then the surcharge discussion, which is the part that has probably caused the most concern for the actuary. And we recognize what the actuary is laying out about surcharges, but I will say this. The surcharges do affect the ability for school districts that are in a difficult situation to hire somebody to fill that need. And so a modification in this area would greatly enhance the ability for a school district like Midland that may be experiencing a rush of folks coming in to live in that area because oil's in a boom and you can't hire somebody because you can't afford housing. And so here you are with a retiree who could do it, but the surcharge may prevent the school district from actually taking part. Lots of different examples. And again, I don't want to belabor it. Y'all been very kind with your time today. I'm happy to answer any questions. We do support this measure.
Thank you, members. Any questions? Quick question, Tim.
Sir.
This includes the concept that Representative Wu brought earlier of 3 strikes. It's incorporated within this bill. This bill is much more expansive,
Yes,
however, than that narrow sort of rifle shot approach. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Just so folks understand how these concepts fit in with each
Yes,
other.
sir.
Thank you for your testimony today.
Thank you.
Let's see. Director Guthrie needed to go over to the lower chamber, Senate side. Chair calls up Andrew Roth with TRS, neutral on the bill as a resource.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, committee members. Andrew Roth. I'm the Chief Operations and Administration Officer for TRS.
Welcome. Members, any questions? I just have a quick question.
Yes, sir.
In terms of the different levers that we're pulling in this bill, any thoughts about how it might impact the plan adversely on a go-forward basis if you have a larger number of teachers coming back, returning to work, especially to mitigate learning loss as a result of the pandemic? How does it impact the actuarial soundness of the fund?
The one concern or the one issue that our actuary noted is the elimination of surcharges and the potential impact that could have on the fund over time, as well as the potential for if there's no surcharge associated with hiring a retiree, that may incentivize an employer to hire retirees instead of new employees, for which they would have to contribute.
And the surcharge, it serves as a deterrent to doing that. How big is the surcharge?
So the surcharge is for the pension is 15.2%. That is equal to the amount of both the member and the state contributions, as well as there's a $535 surcharge for TRS care.
And do you have projections about how much this would cost the fund? And I know you were called in to pinch hit here because
Yes,
Director Guthrie had to go over to the Senate. And if you don't have that available, maybe you can circulate that to the members.
I would be happy to do that as soon as we get back to the office.
Super. Members, any further questions? Thanks for your testimony today.
Thank you, sir.
Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on, for, or against House Bill 3787? If not, the chair recognizes Representative Dean to close on House Bill 3787.
Thanks again, Mr. Chairman. One thing about the actuarial assumptions, it's based on long-term. It's based on every retiree that would come back to work. And so I think we need to be careful when we look at the numbers that there's some assumptions that have been made that are not realistic in practice. So, and again, with appreciation, I close.
And I thank you, Representative Dean. And this may be some guidance to TRS because you raise a really good point. instead of just giving us one assumption, if TRS can give the members of the committee sort of a high case, a low case, and a mid case, I think that would be really, really helpful in evaluating what the impact might be.
Great advice, and we'll follow through with that.
I appreciate you. Thank you, Representative
Thank you,
Dean.
committee. Thank y'all.
All right. House Bill 3787 will be left pending at this time. Okay. Your witness isn't ready yet, so we're going to go to another bill, okay? Yeah. Just come on up here. All right. The chair lays out House Bill 1124 by Representative Munoz relating to cost of living adjustment applicable to certain benefits paid by the teacher retirement system of Texas, including a related study, and recognizes Representative Munoz to explain his bill. Your witness isn't ready yet virtually, so that's why we didn't call you up. Okay. The minute they're ready, we'll get you up. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. And just we have a busy day today for Tim and Brian Guthrie. Just, a lot of teacher retirement bills and dealing with not only cost of living, but some of the adjustments. First of all, thank you to the chair and to the committee members for not only giving me the opportunity to present this bill, but also some of the other bills we've heard from some of the other members signifying the importance of the teacher retirement system. One, because we appreciate what our retired teachers have done to each and every one of us here, and also what we can do as a state going forward to make sure not only that the fund is going to be actuarially sound, but also if there is an opportunity to give them cost of living adjustments that definitely they've been entitled to and they deserve for many years of service to the state. Mr. Chairman and members, House Bill 1124 makes a determination of a cost of living adjustment applicable to certain benefits paid by TRS to ensure that when inflation rates increase, members and their beneficiaries are able to maintain financial security post-retirement. Members, the bill provides for a one-time increase of the lessor of 3% of the annuitant's monthly benefit, or $100 per month, whichever is less, and applies to those who retired between August 2004 and August 2015. Just to clarify, the reason for the specified years is because Senate Bill 1458 from the 83rd session provided for a cost of living adjustment for those who had retired before September 1st, 2004. House Bill 1124 also includes a study of future cost of living adjustments and an alternative annuity option where the lifetime option is paid on a graduated scale over time. Our goal with HB 1124 is simply to address the need for a cost of living adjustment for our retired educators and to provide them with financial security so that they will not be forced to outpace inflation with their personal savings. I'm happy to answer any question at this time, and I would ask the chair if he would invite me to close.
Be delighted.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And also, members, I know we get the LBB fiscal note, and there's always concerns as to what it does to the soundness of the fund, et cetera. And I know there's many ideas and many ways to accomplish what we want to do. And I'm willing to work with members of this committee and the legislature as a whole, as we've done in years past, to make sure that we can do something for our retired teachers and just continue to provide for them going forward. So thank you very much for your time.
Members, any questions? Representative Munoz, thank you for being here. Well, you had to be here, but thank you for laying out the bill. Chair calls up Tim Lee, Executive Director for Texas Retired Teachers Association.
Thank you so much. My name is Tim Lee.
For the bill.
Thank you so much. I'm Tim Lee, Director of the Retired Teachers Association for the bill. Want to thank Representative for laying this out. And we have some excellent retirees that sent me a text this morning saying they are watching. So just make sure that I get hello into all those folks. So TRS Pension Trust Fund is actuarially sound. It meets an actuarial standard of soundness set by the Texas legislature saying that we can amortize or pay down our unfunded liability within a certain period of time. A remarkable achievement by all involved. And I congratulate this committee for years of dedication, and I'm proud to say that we are actuarially sound. The 228 valuation tells us that we have a 26-year amortization period. In 2013, the legislature was able to provide a raise to retirees, as I said earlier this morning, who retired 8/31/2004 or before. At that time, that was as far as we could go before we crossed back over that 31-year amortization period. So we took it as far as we could go. And the sentiment of that legislature was, we were able to do more, we'll come back and finish the job. And so I'm very proud to testify in support of several COLA bills today. And the part of this bill that I particularly think is of consequence is obviously the study of how do we make sure that we continue to look at the situation as time allows. A lot of states have gotten into trouble by having ongoing COLAs and not thinking that process through before they actually had to do it. So studying it and getting an idea of what it would take is an excellent Texas way to try to achieve that goal before we find ourselves in a position where we cannot pay for it. So I appreciate the opportunity. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
What's the fiscal note on this bill? Do you know?
This one, I think, was around 2 billion, 2.8 billion. I don't have it in front of me. And I will talk about how TRS is talking about the actual fiscal note for the cost of the COLA versus the discussion of financing, which is a very confusing situation. And there's some bills that we're going to get into a little bit more of that as we move throughout the day. But that's a great question.
Yeah, and Tim, I didn't mean to trip you up on
Yeah,
it.
sorry.
Maybe those are some of the considerations that we have as a legislature, and we're going to hear bills on other benefits that we can be giving to retired teachers, and it's just a balancing exercise that we need to do about what types of benefits, how much.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, I would say that the value for us is how many years of amortization does this add? So how close does it get us? What is the actual cost to provide the cost of living increase? And that cost has a per annum amount, and it decreases over time. And so, and does it preserve the less than 31-year amortization? So those are items that we're going to look at on all these bills.
And members, I think speaking of lexicon, I used the wrong term. I said fiscal note. There's actually no fiscal note on the bill, but there is an actuarial impact statement to the fund. And that's available in your documents online. So make sure you take a look at those. Thanks for your testimony today. Oh, sorry. I apologize. Representative Stevenson.
That was my first session, and we had 13 when we did you call a my only argument was not fully understanding was only up to 2 in that period of time. And so now we're actually doing it in the other part. And I want to make sure that all the young teachers out here understand that we actually promised we were going to do this. Thank you. We're doing that.
Thank you very much.
Excellent.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony today. All right. Let's see. Anybody else? All right, members, do you all want a resource witness from TRS to come up? No? Okay. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on, for, or against House Bill 1124? If not, the chair recognizes Representative Munoz to close on House Bill 1124.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. And I think it's kind of along the lines of what the chair mentioned earlier, for example, the TRS, which is, a lot of times we have different options and looking at accomplishing that goal, even if it's over time. That would be something very helpful, I think, not only for us, for the committee, but the legislature as a whole, to see if there's different ways to get there at the end. And I'm sure all of us working together and using our best efforts can do that. So thank you very much for allowing me to present my bill, and I'm happy to continue to work with members of this committee and all of our colleagues to make sure that we can do something for our retired teachers going forward. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing the bill. The chair will leave House Bill 1124 pending at this time. The chair calls up House Bill 3214 by Chairman Capriglione relating to a cost of living adjustment applicable to certain benefits paid by the teacher retirement system, and recognize Chair Capriglione to lay out his bill. Representative Parker offers up a committee substitute to House Bill 3214, and the chair recognizes Representative Capriglione.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. Today, I'm here to speak to you about House Bill 3214, and there is a committee substitute. What the committee substitute does is it simply changes the dates of the bill and makes the COLA effective for those who retired prior to 8/31/19, so as to include all retirees, but not incentivize active TRS members to retire by the end of August. Mr. Chairman, I do have a layout, but I just kind of want to simplify what we're trying to do here. At the end of the day, the state of Texas is blessed, right, with the ability to, especially during this pandemic, to have been able to go through this and to be in the financial situation it is today. It's a different story than it was a year ago, or what we thought it would be almost exactly a year ago when we were in this committee talking about the fact that TRS had gotten to a very expensive rent and had leased out some equipment. And so we had that conversation. The reason we were having that conversation, because we have retirees today who are living on almost next to nothing after they've served this state. And we have almost 10 or $11 billion in our rainy day fund. There's about $115 billion in our TRS fund. And what we're trying to propose is a small, capped at $100 increase. And so you got to imagine from their position why this isn't happening, right? And I'm glad, Mr. Chairman, you had a little bit of a conversation on the fiscal notes. If it's okay with you, I'd like to talk a little bit more about what we're doing. What we're asking is for the fund. So this isn't a fiscal note per se in terms of it comes out of our GR or GRD in terms of what it costs, but this is money that comes out of a fund that on any given week or month could be up or down billions of dollars. And in fact, last year, that's what it was doing almost every week, up and down billions of dollars. The amount of payments that this would be for this cost of living adjustment is equivalent to less than 0.3% of that fund's value. To give it another perspective, the cost of this on an annual basis is about 1/3 of what we pay our investment managers for this fund. I mean, we're paying somewhere between 500, 600, almost 700 million with bonuses to our investment managers. And so what we're asking is a smaller percentage of that to go to our retired teachers so that they can pay for their medicine, so they can pay for their food, so they can pay for their rent. In terms of how the fiscal note is calculated currently today, this does not cost the bill, HB1 or SB1. What it does do is it says, okay, we have, through a lot of conservative policies over the last few years, we have been able to get this fund so that it can pay itself off in 26 years. You know, people have different recommendations in terms of what that right number should be. Yes, ideally, we should be able to be at zero. I look for your guidance to find any pension system in America or the world that's at zero. And so what we wanted to do is get under 31, and we're at 26 years. What this bill does is it changes it from 26 to 29, and it gets better each time. The other side of this is say, no, we want to wait till we get to zero. We're asking our retirees, who are in their 60s or 70s or 80s, to wait 26 years otherwise before they get a small bump. What we're trying to do with this bill is simply say, want to provide a small increase, want to provide it now, doesn't cost the bill. It's not our money, the pension fund money, it's their money. So I don't really know how to close anymore. So however that we do that, I'm more than happy to take any questions.
Well, we definitely want you to close, and well said. Chairman Capriglio, members, any questions? All right, the chair calls up Tim Lee, Executive Director of Texas Retired Teachers Association, for the bill.
My name is Tim Lee. I'm the Executive Director of the Texas Retired Teachers Association for the bill. First off, I want to start by thanking Representative Capriglio for being on our Facebook Live event last night and communicating with our retirees. Very, very well received. Did a great job of talking about this bill, being responsive to member needs. And I'm going to pick up with where he sort of left off. There is no general revenue cost tied to this. Is there a cost? Yes. It comes from the fund. Texas has a history of being able to amortize the costs of these one-time COLA adjustments through the trust fund. What is slightly different for us this time is looking at what TRS is projecting as a finance cost. This is, in our opinion, is sort of a different way of looking at it. It's a little bit hard to really understand the way they're laying that out. The cost of providing the COLA is a finite number, which they have, put a number value on it. As I said earlier, that is a number that has an annual cost that goes down a little bit every year. So we know what the cost is going to be. We know that we can add this to our funding period. We know that we're in as Representative Caprillo said, kind of a blessed period of time where we can do this. Will we be in the same position 2 years from now? I don't know. I mean, I live in the present, and it's hard for me to predict the future, especially with our investments. TRS does a great job. If TRS were able to earn just 2/10 of 1% more on their investment return, this would be paid for. So we appreciate all the work that you're doing on this. Thank you so much. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Members, any questions? Thank you for your
Thank you so
testimony today. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on, for, or against House Bill 3214? If not, the chair recognizes Representative Capriglione to close on House Bill 3214.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman, members. Again, what we're simply asking is with this bill, we would be able to provide a small, but for those retirees, significant amount of cost of living adjustment at the cost of less than 1/3 of the investment managers and less than 1/3 of 1% of the current fund balance. That concludes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this time, the chair withdraws. Oh, sorry. Oh, okay. Thank you. At this time, the chair withdraws the committee substitute to House Bill 3214. House Bill 3214 will be left pending at this time. The chair lays out House Bill 3507 relating to a one-time supplemental payment of benefits under the TRS system of Texas, and recognizes Representative Rogers. Representative Stevenson offers up a committee substitute to House Bill 3507, and the chair recognizes Representative Rogers to explain his bill as substitute.
Thank you, Chairman Anchia and Vice Chairman Parker and all the members for the opportunity to lay out House Bill 3507. My mother was a high school history teacher, and I recognize the positive impact teachers make on the lives of 6 million Texas students. Providing for our retired teachers is not just about their career benefits, it's about showing those considering a career in teaching that the state of Texas will provide fair compensation throughout their career and retirement. So House Bill 3507 would grant retirees under the teacher retirement system a one-time supplemental payment. And that would be equal to the lesser of their annuity, or $2,400. As has been stated earlier, and I'll repeat it, more than 136,000 TRS retirees earn less than $1,000 per month in their annuities, while another 101,000 earn about $1,000. The monthly average among all retirees is just $2,118. About 96% of TRS retirees do not receive or qualify for any Social Security income benefits. The legislature can only grant benefit increases to retirees if, after the cost of their benefit increase is factored in the pension fund unfunded liability, it stays under 31 years, as has been pointed out several times today. Earlier this session in this committee, Mr. Brian Guthrie testified that valuation should put the funding period for the TRS pension fund at 26 years. House Bill 3507 does not intend to come even close to the 31-year funding period. Thank you for your time, and I would respectfully request the right to close, and I'd be happy to entertain any questions at this time.
Members, any questions? Thank you. We appreciate you bringing this bill forward. The chair recognizes Nancy Byler, I hope I'm saying that right, from the Texas Retired Teachers Association for the bill, and representing herself.
Yes. Mr. Chairman, Vice Chair Parker, members, and especially Representative Rogers, my state representative, for having this hearing today. My name is Nancy Byler. I am a retiree here on behalf of the Texas Retired Teachers Association and also
the seniors across Texas, since I am a member of the Texas Silver-Haired Legislature, where I serve as education chair. There are multiple bills today on the committee to grant additional benefits to retired educators. Please know that all retirees in Texas are supportive of all these bills, but it is important for us to understand that while there are different options on the table, we're hopeful that at least one of these bills will make it through for much needed assistance to our retirees. I have two quick stories I want to tell you. I'm going to make this short. For the last 10 years, I've had the opportunity to travel across Texas and speak to retirees and seniors. There's two stories that stick in my mind, and they're both with the 13th checks. One was a lady who stood and cried in a district meeting because she got her dentures fixed because of a 13th check. The second one was a lady in the Panhandle in the fall who said, because of the 13th check, we got to fill up our propane tank for the winter. If you think what you do is not important and how you treat retirees, you're wrong, because what you do is important to them. So I'm going to ask you to support anything that you can do for our retirees of Texas. Like you do one thing for me, think of a former teacher that had an impact on your life, and know that what you do today and what comes out of this session is definitely going to impact that person, not for one day or 1 year, but the rest of their lives. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you for your testimony today. Members, any questions? Thank you. All right. Let's see. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on, for, or against House Bill 3507? If not, the chair recognizes Representative Rogers to close on House Bill 3507.
Well, House Bill 3507 would greatly provide financial support to our retired teachers while keeping their pension solvent. And thank you for your time, and I ask for your favorable consideration of House Bill 3507.
Just one comment, Representative Rogers, I'm really glad you shared your personal story with your mom being a history teacher. My mom was a 30-year veteran public school teacher, taught first grade ESL and bilingual. So at least speaking for myself only, we really need to do something for our retired teachers. And all the testimony today has been very compelling. Thank you for bringing this bill forward. This is one of the options that we will definitely consider as we do right by them. So thank you.
Thank you.
And to Susie Hager, who's my neighbor, who's probably watching this, she is the unpaid lobbyist in District 103 for retired teachers. I send you greetings and salutations. If any of you want to say hi to your retired teachers who are likely watching at home, just please do. Please do. We're thinking about you. We have members, we're about to head to the floor. We have two bills that we're going to come back for. We will come back for Representative Davis's bill and Representative Gates's bill. Representative Gates's bill is going to have somebody testify virtually that they were not available this morning. They will be after we get back from our calendar today. Thank you, everybody in the audience, and to the members, not only for bringing these pieces of legislation forward and for your testimony, but for being so efficient. So without objection, the committee will recess until the final adjournment or recess of the House today, or during the period authorized for reading and referral of bills, if permission is granted by the House.
Hi again, everyone. Well, thank you for watching this meeting today. We've got, a couple more events at the state level of TRTA planned for today. Of course, there are local and district events going on throughout this week. So, if you haven't been involved in those, I recommend contacting those people. Coming up at 11 o'clock, we have another co-stream that will be of the Senate, and they will be reading a resolution thanking retired educators for their service. So we appreciate the Senate for doing that. If you've ever been to the in-person version of the day at the Capitol, that's often when retired educators will fill the House and Senate galleries, and there will be applause and all that. So you'll definitely want to tune in for that. And then at noon, there is going to be a wrap-up rally where Tim Lee, who of course was so busy doing all this testimony today, he will be doing a presentation with himself and some other members of our legislative committee, including like Nancy Byler, who just finished testifying. So we encourage you to join us for that. And of course, also there will be a presentation by our retired educator foundation, TRTF, who provides charitable assistance during that meeting. So again, we'll be back on stream in about an hour at 11 for the Senate. And then at noon, we will be having our wrap-up rally. Thanks again, and we'll be in touch.